Excuse me? Excuse me? Sorry, do you speak English?
No, I don't, sorry.
Oh. My car's broken down, and I wondered if you could tell me where to find a garage.
Well, that's wasted on me. I don't understand what you're saying.
You don't speak any English at all?
Not a word, no. It's one of those things, really. I wish I paid more attention in school, but, Excuse me. Sorry. Do you speak any English?
English? No. What's the problem?
I don't know. I can't understand it.
Hi, my car's broken down, and I need to find a garage.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't understand that at all.
All right, well, thanks.
Tell you what, if you go down that way, about half a mile, there's a village. There might be somebody there that speaks English.
Ich speak ein bisschen Deutsch. Sprechen Sie Deutsch?
Deutsch, nein. Sprichst du Deutsch?
Deutsch? Nein. Nun, ein oder zwei Wörter, aber ich bin nicht fließend.
I'm sorry, could we more help?
Yeah, sorry about that. Hey, you never know. Next time you're over, maybe we'll have learned a bit of English for you.
Ja, oder Deutsch vielleicht.
Ja, das wäre toll.
Thanks, anyway.
I can speak English.
So can I.
Welcome to Darkwood Brew, where ancient Christian mystical practice is blended with modern interactive web technology, world-class jazz, arts, biblical scholarship, and, well, you never know exactly what's going to happen. I'm Eric Elmas, your host, and you've joined us for part 2 of our series, Hark, the Herald, Advent series, looking at the fruits of the season, where we've been joining up with the United Church of Christ and their Still Speaking Writers group. This evening we'll be joined by Donna Schaper, who's been called a contemplative activist and a radical mystic. She'll be coming to us from Judson Memorial Church in New York City, and she'll be we'll hear a reading from that Hark devotional book shortly. So there's once a country a real country that experienced a very amazing period of economic prosperity, really an economic bubble where unprecedented amounts of wealth and goods flowed into the country, and during that time anybody who was in the upper middle class became wealthy, and those who had become wealthy became part of the super rich. Yet at the same time, the gap between the rich and the poor grew and grew. Making matters worse, that country experienced a sudden economic decline, a very rapid one, and that made matters worse for everyone, especially the poor, as the country then devoted an unusually large amount of its wealth to militarization and fighting, getting ready to fight wars. That country I'm speaking about, of course, is the country of Israel in the 8th century BCE. And those who were entrusted with the voice of justice, who could speak the language of justice, were few and far between. And yet there was a prophet or two who arose, one of them being the prophet Micah. We'll be hearing about Micah's story and relating that to our own times, seeing if there's insight to be drawn for today in our series, Hark, the Herald. But before we go any further, let's let the band take us into the program.
Jab.
Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh. All the fields we go, laughing all the way.
Well, it's great fun to join Carol Rogers and the Brews Brothers for that musical extravaganza. My finger's still a little bit sore from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were really pushing it there.
Yeah, it really
Yeah.
was. It was really rocking.
Awesome.
Well, tonight we want to, being that it is Advent, we have our traditional Advent iPhone lighting, and Tracy Halverson will be reading from Donna Schaper's work, Hark, Another Way, from the Hark devotional book.
Hark! Listen up. Advent is often a whisper. It is more like a song that is sung first by one group, then by a larger group, and then by a whole group, giving meaning to the sense of cadence that Christmas often has. Hark Another Way. Advent is so subtle that it may need a hearing aid. We need help to hear Advent because it has so much competition. It is like we are in an airport where everybody is announcing every few minutes that we have to pay attention to potential errors, if not potential dangers. If you see something, say something. Furthermore, we're not to leave our bags unattended, or our flight could be leaving the gate any second without us. In the middle of these warnings, Advent sends a deeper message. The Lord will redeem you from the hands of your enemies. Note that there is an implication that we do have enemies. Hark the enemy part as much as you do the redemption part. Why? Anything that goes straight to the redemption is spiritually naive. Anything that stays stuck on the enemies is spiritually paranoid. To avoid either insult or incompletion, we must focus. Focus faces fears only to transcend them. Hark! There are reasons to be afraid. So many hopes have so many enemies. Every day, most people have the hope that they will get home safely and not miss the plane, that the tires they forgot to rotate or repair will carry them home. Many migrant laborers send money home at the end of the week as a vague way of redeeming hard labor, repetitive motion, and little respect. Many of us hope for a stress-free day, the way children hope for Christmas. Mouths wide open, fantasies abundant, reality left checked at the gate. Hark with focus. Our enemies are nothing compared to the Almighty, who will redeem us from them. God of Jerusalem and Babylon, of our enemies and our friends, our fears and our faith, draw near. Come close enough that we can hear you. Amen.
My favorite line of that whole devotion. So many hopes have so many enemies.
Yeah. Donna's a great writer. She's got about 20 books out
Really?
there. Yeah.
Wow. That's a
Yeah.
lot. I didn't realize she had done that many. That's a lot.
It's more than me.
Yeah, more than me. We have a question of the week that's based on Donna's writing this week, and we were talking about Micah and the prophetic voice out there. So our question of the week was, what is the modern equivalent of beating a sword into a plowshare?
Comes right out of The book of Micah, chapter 4.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So what do we get?
So, well, Ruth Durkin said, I have 2 pieces of jewelry that I love which symbolize this. One is a tree of life made from the remains of shells which were used to bomb Afghanistan. The other is a tree of life made from peace bronze, which is made from the hundreds of miles of wiring used to connect the missile silos in the West. These are weapons of destruction made into a symbol of life.
Wow, that's
really
that's
neat.
pretty amazing. I had no idea they were making
Literally beaten into symbols of peace. Really nice.
Interesting. Reminds me in the book of Revelation, there's this tree of life that kind of emerges at the end, but the word for the wood of the tree is not the normal word for wood. It's actually the same word that was used for wood on the cross.
Oh,
So there's a kind of an interesting connection to that particular
really nice.
notation there. Yeah.
Yeah. Another Joanne Stabler said housing the homeless in unneeded military bases. So any of those military bases out there that we're considering closing down, then wouldn't that be a great place to house homeless?
Huh. Wow.
And Kimberly Carol Schrader says turning soldiers into Peace Corps.
There we go.
All very helpful,
Good start.
useful
Yeah,
things.
that's right.
We also have David Noel saying, I think I would say in our times and culture that this is really as simple as the money, energy, resources, and people who are spent on war, security, and the military, so that they could be redesignated to end poverty and starvation.
Boy, that one really has a direct
Yeah.
connection to tonight's episode and the prophet Micah.
Yeah, we had a couple of people that mentioned, energy and all those kinds of things into that very thing, turning them into peaceful things.
Yeah, it's actually helpful to have a little bit of context for this 8th century prophet. Micah was a prophet who operated in and around Jerusalem. He was from outside of Jerusalem, but operating the same time as Isaiah of Jerusalem. And if I'm going to throw up a map here, so you can just kind of see the context in which Israel sits here. It's very relevant to what was going on here. You see, up in the north, Israel constantly was kind of sandwiched between 2 superpowers. You had, depending on the time period, either the Assyrians or the Babylonians up in the north. And then you got this little, as you head south, you got this little land bridge known as Israel. And it's really a land bridge because you have the Arabian Desert, which is impassable on south of that. And to the other side, you have the ocean. And then you have the Mediterranean. Then you have Egypt, the other superpower, down south. Now, this, if you want to kind of get an idea of the geography, the state of Nebraska is 10 times larger than that of Israel. Israel is about the same size as the state of New Jersey, actually. A small state, a significant state, but a small one, sandwiched between basically the equivalent of like the U.S. and the USSR in the Cold War. And these countries were always going at it. If they wanted to take over one, they had to take over that little land bridge in between. So consequently, Israel only enjoyed about 70 years of actual freedom from their, these neighbors and from any kind of warfare with them in their whole history. A very, very brief period of time. The rest of the time, they're either a vassal to one or the other, or at war with one or the other, or both. And yet, when there were these brief periods of maybe not safety, but at least where the 2 countries weren't going at each other, they started trading with each other. So the Mesopotamians or Babylonians to the north would be trading with the Egyptians. Well, all that had to flow through the nation of Israel. Mm-hmm. And so if you could just stick your finger into the flow of all those goods and that money, like through taxation and on the toll roads that went through Israel, you could make a fortune. And that's exactly what was going on at the beginning of the 8th century in Israel, where people who were able to tap into that were just becoming astronomically wealthy. And that's when you have then the prophets Amos and Hosea rising up to say, listen, this is all great for some of you, but for a lot of people, this is not working so well. They don't have their finger tapped in there, and prices are going up, and they don't have the means to do anything. And so that there's this huge growing gap. Well, that all ended in the middle of the 8th century when the Assyrians decided to make a few incursions into Israel. And to make a very long story short, that's when you had the north completely decimated. They're known now as the 10 lost tribes of Israel. And in the south, you had all these immigrants coming into the south in Judah, where the two other tribes that remained were. And so you had this flood of immigration, people fighting over what should we do with all these immigrants. And you also had the south thinking, we need to militarize because this could happen to us. And so they start plowing all kinds of resources into fortifying their cities, building huge grain reserves and so forth. They were taking over farms of farmers to devote them to these, these military kind of build-up in case of attack. And in the midst of all this, you have the prophet Micah and Isaiah both saying, wait a minute, something's really, really wrong here. You think you're being safe by preparing for war, but you're not being safe as you are exploiting the poor, the widow, the orphan, failing to take care of those who are on the margins, and getting very upset about it.
Well, you sure that happened in 8th century BCE and not
I know
now?
people accuse me of they're like, oh, you're just making that up to speak today. No, that's actually all we had to do is go to the Bible, and that's exactly what was happening back then. It kind of shows that the more things change, the more things remain the same. One of these days we're going to learn from the history,
I hope
perhaps, and that history didn't go particularly well for Israel, so hopefully we'll learn fast. But
And that whole taxation thing, if we could put our finger in the stream, we wouldn't think of what we could match.
Yeah, that's right, absolutely, and that was exactly what Isaiah and Micah were really talking about. It's like this could go into these resources for those who are oppressed and who are on the margins, who are the most vulnerable.
Well, our stream is a $10,000 grant that was given by a Darkwood brewer.
Oh, you're trying
not
about that
too long
now.
ago.
Oh, okay.
That was a really good segue on my part. That was
completely went over my head. Yeah, sorry.
But anyway, we have this really great grant, and I just wanted to keep you up to date on where we are. We've gotten $820 in so far, which is actually doubled because of the matching grant. So we keep that going, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's been really very much appreciated. Darkwood Brew costs about $210,000 to operate over the course of a year. So this 10,000, and we have not really gone to our viewers in any kind of sustained way until now that we are looking towards the end of that our reserves in the early next year, and we're then trying to make sure that we're a sustainable force. So we're very happy to the Darkwood Brew viewer who donated that $10,000 to match yours. So if you would get on that site and donate, we'd very much appreciate it. We don't want to turn into a program where we're always harping about money, but we do need to make sure that we're sustainable too. So
and to take advantage of gifts that we've already received. So that would be great.
Absolutely. So next week, before we go further, I wanted to also note that next week we'll be joined by another member of the UCC Writers Group, Quinn Caldwell. And just to give you a little preview of coming attractions, we had a brief conversation, the Darkwood Brew planning team and myself with Quinn. And you check out his Skype setup here.
Well, my computer did, apparently. I was shutting my doors.
With like race cars in it?
Yeah, you wouldn't believe the stuff this thing can do. Like,
oh
I can
my
get
goodness. There you go.
It can give me a crowd. Oh, it's not reading my face well enough. Anyway, I'm going to do my best to turn it off. Stay with me.
That's hilarious. I've never seen that before.
There's Elvis, too.
Can we have maybe... There we go. I like that.
But wait, it's not working. It can oh, there you go.
Oh my gosh.
Should we do this on your show?
Yeah, you need to teach us how to do that.
You're the producer, Scott Grisell, asking, you need to teach us how to do that.
I do want to know how to do
maybe
that.
By next week, we hope to be wearing dresses, Darkwood Brew. So, well, shortly we'll be going to Donna Schaper, but before we do, we've kind of adjusting our pneuma where it gets placed in the show. That's the where we kind of step into an ancient ritual practice known to many as Lectio Divina. This is our little kind of our take on that, where we simply read a scripture passage, and you're going to hear it read by Tracy Halverson just straight through Micah chapter 4, verses 1 through 10. And then as music plays, we simply invite you to take a couple deep breaths in, let them out slowly. As you see the text kind of float by on the screen, pay attention to what verse rises up off that screen, and we'll be asking you on chat to indicate which verse that was. We have a poll function that you can see on your chat window. My chat is actually going a little bit strange tonight. I hope yours is working okay. If it's not, we just have a new chat feature up right now that we started last week, and we were kind of working out some bugs this week. It's going to take us a couple of weeks before we truly get it down, but once we do, it's going to be the most powerful chat function.
Fabulous.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. You can actually create your own chat rooms and create public ones, private ones, and so forth. Even eventually do video chatting with people, but that's we're going to make sure we work out
Really
the bugs
fancy.
first. Yeah. But if your chat isn't working tonight, I apologize for that. It looks like it's working for a number of people, but it's not working for me.
Aw.
But let's hear the. But if you do have issues too, there are kind of a FAQ section on the chat window just below the Darkwood Brew browser. So let's hear our Pneuma passage, Micah chapter 4, verses 1 through 10.
In days to come, the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established as the highest of the mountains, and shall be raised up above the hills. Peoples shall stream to it, and many nations shall come and say, Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may teach us his ways, and that we may walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth instruction, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He shall judge between many peoples, and shall arbitrate between strong nations far and away. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. But they shall all sit under their own vines and under their own fig trees, and no one shall make them afraid. For the mouth of the Lord of hosts has spoken. For all the peoples walk, each in the name of its God. But we will walk in the name of the Lord our God forever and ever. In that day, says the Lord, I will assemble the lame and gather those who have been driven away and those whom I have afflicted. The lame I will make a remnant, and those who were cast off, a strong nation, and the Lord will reign over them in Mount Zion, now and forevermore. And you, O tower of the flock, hill of daughter Zion, to you it shall come, the former dominion shall come, the sovereignty of daughter Jerusalem. Now, why do you cry aloud? Is there no king in you? Has your counselor perished, that pangs have seized you like a woman in labor? Writhe and groan, O daughter of Zion, like a woman in labor. For now you shall go forth from the city and camp in the open country. You shall go to Babylon. There you shall be rescued. There the Lord will redeem you from the hands of your enemies.
What was the verse that seemed to stand out for you? I encourage you to, if you're on live chat, to find that little place that, underneath the viewer window and indicate that. Those of you in the coffee house are going to ask for it a little bit later. They're wearing them on their heads here at Darkwood Brew, so they're getting a little crazy. Some of that festive holiday nog, I think, has sunk in. But we'll be asking you for those verses a little bit later in the episode, doing it a little differently tonight. But we want to go now to Donna Schaper, who we've been waiting for in just within Greenwich Village in New York City at Judson Memorial Church. Good to have you on tonight, Donna.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Yeah. So you are part of the UCC Still Speaking Writers Group, and you've been with that group for a while now, haven't you?
Yes. I don't even know how long.
And they, I'm sure they chose you because you've written, quite a number of books and quite well. Do you have a favorite amongst those like 20 that you've written?
Oh, Eric, I've written 31.
Oh, 31. Okay. I can't count very high, so.
Not bragging, but my absolute favorite is Keeping Sabbath.
Great.
That I wrote in the 90s, and it was to address the time famine that so many people experience. And the only bad thing about the book is it didn't stop the time famine. And here it is 2012, and it's only gotten worse.
What can you tell us about the time famine?
Nobody thinks they have enough time, when in fact we have all the time that we need.
And so if we're going to come out of that time famine, do you have advice for that?
Yeah, well, I don't know that advice would be it, but it would be just a way of appreciating it. Like Micah said, there's a time coming when everybody will have their own and all will be good. And I would love to think we could live in that time now as time feast instead of time famine.
Yeah. During Advent, are there particular ways that you engage in that time feast this season?
It's so funny. Here at our church, at Judson Memorial Church in the city, we are so full tonight of 3 concerts, 2 plays, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, maybe they're listening to me. Since so much is happening. But it's also a feast, and you just have to stop worrying about the hour and start thinking about the days and the goodness that's coming.
Yeah. Yeah, we were reflecting this morning at Countryside Community Church, where I serve here in Omaha, that really one of the best ways to be faithful during the season is simply to notice. Just take time to notice things.
Yes, notice what we think we've already seen.
Yeah, that's right.
And manage expectations, keep hope high.
Yeah. We always kind of step into worship by taking just a couple minutes of just silence to ask ourselves, where in the last 24 hours have you either given love or received love? And I'm always amazed at how quickly the memory fades of those moments unless we actually get intentional about calling those things to mind.
I love that idea. When you've given love or received love, just remember that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really good.
Kind of riffing off of Ignatius of Loyola and his examen time. But now you have been called a contemplative activist, and you've been called a radical mystic. Why would people use those terms in association with you?
Because I goof off all the time. I'm the most productive, unproductive person you've ever met. I actually, things do happen around me and through me, but mostly I'm playing. I don't work at all. There are even people in my congregation who have concerns about my work ethic, and I really have a play ethic.
Say more about that.
I only do what I want to do. But I'm free. I have enough money to live on. And I have a husband who works. And I have a fabulous congregation that supports me. So I don't feel the pressure that many people feel about doing work that doesn't push all their buttons. My work pushes all my buttons.
It's great. Oftentimes in ministry circles, you hear ministers almost bragging about how busy they are and, just how they just have no time to do anything. Coming from you, I'm hearing about the opposite. I'm not hearing you're unbusy.
No, I have plenty to do, and I like to have my time filled, but it's filled with feast and not with famine. I don't like to work on behalf of what other people think I should be doing.
So it sounds like you've developed quite a talent for saying no, then? Is that how you do that?
No. I've developed a talent for saying yes to the really good stuff, and also a capacity to invite others to do what is their bliss. We've been working a lot in Occupy Faith here in New York City and Occupy Sandy. We've been through absolute hell the last couple of months with a natural, or I would like to say an unnatural disaster that really scared us to our bones. And what is remarkable is what Occupy Sandy is doing, to do what we call mutual aid as opposed to charity. When you're in the position of either giving or taking, that drives you straight to the time famine. You could never do enough, or you could become so self-important by doing whatever you were doing that it would be kind of, I'm just working so hard. That's just so self-justifying. Who needs it? So what I like to say is that we're trying to release the gifts of all people to all people. And I envision an economy and a spirituality that allows that to happen.
Can you give some, what's a concrete example of that for those who may be saying, yes, amen, but I don't see how do you get from point A to point B? Okay.
A concrete example is, we're overrun with FEMA here in New York City, and thank God FEMA is here. Because we do need government. We need major responses to the disaster that's here. But we're also overrun with people who want to help, who show up with a can of green beans and say, oh, please, get this to somebody. Well, we don't have the infrastructure to get the can of green beans to somebody. So we honor the impulse to give and try to help people be decentralized, relocalized. And I just heard a great story today about a guy who filled up his car with help because the people on the northern side of the city weren't that affected. So they just wanted to help because they knew the people on the southern and eastern side of the cities were mightily affected. And so he filled up his car and he went to all the big organizations, Red Cross, FEMA, big organizations of charity, and said, how can I help? Well, they all said, we have enough. We can't deal with you. Go away. That's what happens to most of us when we really try to give from our heart. So what he did is he just went on the back roads in East Rockaway. And guess what? There were people out, putting all of their earthly possessions on the street, pulling out walls that had terrible mold in them on the street. And he just stopped the damn car, and said, could you guys use any of this? And sure enough, he met 2 blocks of people through some people he called Mary and Ed. I'm sure that's not their real name because they don't need to be outed. And they distributed the cleaning supplies and the bleach and all that stuff to other people. Lateral is good. Top down is usually not. Sometimes top down can work, but usually it doesn't. So moving side to side in a format of mutual aid in just about any endeavor. As a pastor, I don't work that hard because I expect people in my parish to work really hard. And they see me coming and they know I'm going to ask for something. I'm going to ask for their gift to be released.
That's interesting. As you were talking, I was kind of reflecting on times I've seen in churches where sometimes you get, not just in churches, but in other organizations where you get this culture where thank yous are expected to be given all the time. And I always kind of wonder, well, if you have to always be giving thank yous to folks, are you asking them to do things then that are not particularly in their sweet spot, they're not particularly getting joy from, and hence they need to always have that constant reminder that, it's appreciated. It seems like in the ideal setting, whether it be in a church or in our work settings or in volunteer organizations, in a sense, if we're dialed into our sweet spot, we should be thanking those who are allowing us to take concrete action to satisfy that.
Have you ever seen anybody come back from a so-called mission trip and not say, "Oh, I was so surprised. I went there to help them, and it turned out it helped me"? Or the Talmudic quote, "More than the householder does for the poor does for the householder." We are so confused about the host and the guest. That's why our immigration policy is wrong. I could go on. You don't need the whole speech, but it really helps us to give from our sweet spot, and it hurts us not to give. So what we have what we used to have in Protestantism, which is all but dead, as we all know, is we have over-functioning clergy and under-functioning, disempowered lay people. All we need to do is give power to regular people, and they will help each other, and we need to get out of their way.
Amen. Well, Donna, we're going to come back in a few minutes, and we'll probably continue along those lines and get to our Micah passage in particular as well. Thank you for joining us thus far. And for those of you in the coffee house, while the band is playing their musical feature, we invite you to hold up your Pneuma reading, and then we will come back and we'll announce which verse has kind of struck fire with our world community, and offer Donna a chance to comment on that if she chooses to. So, Steve?
Thanks, Eric. Joining Carlos tonight are Jorge Nilo on saxophone and Matt Amandus on keys. We're going to do a Chuck Moronic tune called Time Essence.
As the band was playing, one of our Darkwood Brew viewers wrote eloquently on chat that it's also appropriate as we listen to jazz to remind ourselves of the gifts of Dave Brubeck, who passed on this week, and deeply spiritual connection to music he had personally and helped many of us develop over time. Well, Morris, we have heard from the world community and from the coffee house community. We're all in alignment.
Yes, we have. Verse 3.
Verse 3, which is, "He shall judge between many peoples, and shall arbitrate between strong nations far away. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore." Well, whether or not that was your verse, we encourage you to simply keep the verse that did rise up for you throughout the week and see if it speaks to you in different ways. It's rather amazing sometimes how that Pneuma verse can kind of enter our consciousness at different times to speak in various ways. But we want to see right now if it speaks anything in particular to our Skype guest, Donna Schaper, rejoining us from New York City. I also noticed, Donna, on chat, somebody was wondering what denomination Judson Memorial is affiliated with.
We're United Church of Christ and American Baptist.
So you get 2 for the price of 1.
Yeah, or 4 for the price of 2.
Great. So does that verse 3 about beating swords into plowshares and so forth, does that speak to you in any particular way from your setting?
You know, it speaks to the kind of Martha Stewart in me. I am such a pragmatist. I'm so practical. I want to know what the next 3 steps are at any given moment. I don't want to know, where we're going, by the time I'm dead. I want to know about tomorrow and the next day. And I am so distressed about all the wasted life and money and time and anxiety we spent on fighting 9/11. A terrible thing happened, and 2 buildings right down the street from me were taken out. And shouldn't have happened. It happened for reasons I can never, ever fathom. But having said that, our response, with the exception of President Bush's response, who very clearly then, one of the first things he said about what we were going to do in response to the terrorist attacks, he said, not all Muslims did this, only a few did it. It's so important, such an act of leadership to say, look, something really terrible and crazy happened, but oh my God, now I have to take my shoes off at the airport. It's $3 million a day in Afghanistan. And I think I got the billion or trillion wrong there. It's some astronomical amount of money, so large that I can't fathom it. What if we had built bridges or fertilized soil in that great world of the Middle East? With a 10% of that money, just a 10% of that money, and acted like the great Americans that we really are, and beat our swords, our missiles, our bombs, our military into plowshares and built something, even with 10% of it, oh my God, we wouldn't have a debt crisis, because the debt crisis comes from militarizing our response to 9/11. We wouldn't have widespread despair and anxiety and hopelessness, we wouldn't have so many people dead. There were so many things we could have done, like a Peace Corps or building soil, anything but a military response. So what I love about Micah is no more war, no more violence. Just stop it. Let's do something different. It ain't working.
So are you suggesting that we are less safe through our military spending rather than more safe?
We are less safe. It's a fact. I mean, if people want to talk about it, I'll talk about it all night long. We are less safe. We feel less safe. Okay, we've not had another terrorist incident, but my God, taking off your clothes every time you get on an airplane? What is that for a free citizen to do? I mean, I'm kind of an old woman, and I used to be very attractive, and I'm not that attractive anymore. But I swear to every time they say that I should take off my shoe or my belt or whatever, I think about taking everything off and just give me a break. This is not what an American citizen does. We don't, and children are freaked out going through this, and parents have to yell at them. It's nuts. It's a ridiculously expensive and stupid. I told you I was a pragmatist. You know, the second Wall Street kind of management by objectives, or show me the results, or give me the bottom line, starts to apply to what we've done in Afghanistan, in Iraq, Iran, and in Jerusalem. Just show me. Show me what we've done. We have made the world less safe. We have squandered resources. We've killed young life. It ain't worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've wondered about that over the years. If we would have put that many hundreds of billions of dollars into things like the Peace Corps and just flooding the area of our so-called enemies with people who are there to make a difference in the world, what it would have been like if you could run parallel histories and see you put all the money into war or put all the money into peaceful activities like that. What would be the result?
Let's not think about all the money. Yeah. Give me 10%. 10%.
Yeah.
10% plows instead of swords. Yeah. And let's see what we can do with it. I mean, we don't have to think so totalistically. That's kind of Stalin stuff, and we're over that. Just 10% into developing people, or something kind, or at least something that showed us that we are the great diverse nation that we are, and we're not just into revenge.
Yeah. Reminded, even on the microcosm, years ago I saw a person who was an expert in gangs and helping people out of gangs, and was talking about how much money, once a kid goes into the juvenile system, this was about 10 years ago, they're saying it cost about $35,000 per year to have this person in the system, when from his experience what they really needed, all they really needed was one friend. Friend they could trust and they could confide in, especially an adult friend who they could look up to and come to a time of crisis, could have saved all that money. And that, of course, that life space, that's wasting away in the juvenile system.
I don't really like to argue this on pragmatic terms. I'm willing to argue it on pragmatic terms. I think the moral terms that Micah lays out are very powerful. Micah proclaims, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. But finally, I think those who don't follow the prophet have to deal with the fact that what they're doing isn't working for us. So if you gave a kid a friend, we know exactly as you're saying that children who have difficult or beleaguered parents can be helped by a coach or a teacher or a Sunday school teacher or somebody who takes an interest in them. I mean, why do we waste money doing violence to people to whom violence has been done? That's the point.
Right. It seems like you get right back into that sweet spot thing. If we would find that sweet spot, that which brings us most fully alive in this world, and go do that, trusting that in doing that, we are doing God's work in the world. We would be really putting that energy out there significantly more than we are so now. Donna, Morris has been monitoring our chat, which seems to be working pretty well right now. And
Yes.
I wasn't able to get it on earlier, but you found, I think there's been a few questions surface, but do you have one that in particular that...
I do. Israel of our
yes, yeah.
of our online community asked Donna regarding your earlier discussion, how do we have all of the time that we need? You referenced having all the time that we need. Can you unpack that for us? How do we have all of the time that we need?
Well, I know we don't feel that most of the time. I got it. But we're not going to get any more than we already have. You have to start there. And the second you start to think about time as yours, as opposed to time that is ours in past, present, future, it becomes pretty important to say that the very few minutes I have with you here now, or will have later tonight with my husband, or tomorrow morning with my daughter, or tomorrow afternoon with my congregant who wants to kill himself, that's what I got. And making that important and not giving a second of it away to anxiety. Most of us service our anxiety the way we service our debt. That, I'm told, I don't know if this is true, that 30% of every American dollar goes to debt service. And I'm pretty sure that 30% of most people's times goes to anxiety service. And why give any of it away? I had breast cancer 11 years ago, and the most helpful thing anybody said to me was, okay, Donna, you might die. You might die young. You might not see your kids' graduation from college. But every minute you give away to servicing the anxiety right now of that possibility of death is sort of giving the cancer what it wants. So I made a real decision not to service the anxiety. And it helped me. I still service the anxiety, but I got it down to around 10% instead of 30%.
Yeah. Reminds me of a writers' conference I was at a couple of years ago, in which Anne Lamott was talking about something similar, where she talked about imagining, like, if you bring in each day, you have like $100, and that $100 is the amount of energy you have. And so somebody drives you crazy, and you start thinking, well, am I willing to pay for that? I've got $100. And what am I paying in order to feel that anger towards that person? So she was encouraging us all to think about, before we start acting out, is, am I willing to pay for that? What am I willing to pay for that?
Right. I don't want to give the captains of fear another nickel, another minute. I want that time for myself and for us and for God. And I just think the captains of fear are stealing time and energy from us, and we have to stop them.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Donna. We appreciate your joining us. That's a good way to end that. You have, I think you've been taken out of the pockets of the captains of fear and giving us those nickels of hope and faith along with it. We'll look forward to having you on the program again sometime.
Great to be with you.
Okay. One interesting thing about Micah and his prophecies, as well as the other prophetic literature in the Old Testament, that line that surfaced tonight about the swords being creating into, you're hammering them into plowshares and into pruning hooks. We wonder, when is this actually happening? I mean, have the nations ever ceased warfare, like the prophets kept promising that there'll be a time when there will be peace? But there's an interesting facet of the prophetic literature that doesn't come out into the English translations of the Bible. A lot of times when the prophets are speaking that in words that are translated into English in the future tense, they're actually speaking in the past tense or the perfect sense in Hebrew. And translators like look, they say, well, so this is talking about something that's already happened, but clearly it hasn't happened, so they translate it into the future. They have a special word for that. They call it the prophetic perfect. The prophetic perfect. It's as if the prophets are trying to speak about something that has already happened and yet not yet happened at the same time. And as Donna was reflecting on our own sense of having time in this world and taking time, I was wondering about if we could take that prophetic literature and for what it's really, I think, pointing us to do, which is to notice things. That not all of the swords and the spears have been beat into plowshares and to pruning hooks, but already some have, and already there are activities in the world that are creating peace, not war. And if we take the time to notice those things and to honor those things and to value those things, perhaps more and more we would be working ourselves into a day when that would be the dominant energy in our world. And certainly when it comes to making peace and engaging in acts of love, the ritual that we engage in every week at Darkwood Brew, known as communion, brings this all together. And if you happen to have juice and crackers or bread and wine this evening at your residence, we invite you to join us with whatever you may have in this ritual, because we are reminded that in essence, when Christ came, we made war on our God through breaking his body, through shedding Christ's blood. And yet, what was God's response? It was not to wipe us out, it was not to lash out in anger, but rather to bring forth more love, to bring forth more grace, to bring forth more invitation to greater relationship. Sometimes I think that if we would just simply step back and notice what has already happened and really honor that and really take it for what it's worth, then the not yet would become, in breaking into our world, all the more. So I invite you this evening to partake of what has already happened, the peacemaking that has already happened, to take this into your own very body and blood, and in so doing, to share that very peacemaking with the world in Christ's name. The gifts of God for the people of God. I invite all to enjoy the feast. So thank you for joining us this evening, and we invite you to, if Darkwood Brew you're finding this helpful to you, we once again ask you if you'd consider even a donation of $10 a week. Goes mighty far in helping us be sustainable, and that is now doubled right now, up to $10,000. And we look forward to joining you next week as well for Quinn Caldwell, who's coming to us from Syracuse, New York. Fantastic guy. As you can tell already, he's very funny and very intelligent. He might be joining us in his Elvis suit. You never know. But, and as we go by, we also appreciate it if you spread the word about Darkwood Brew. Like our page. I invite you to become Facebook friends with me as well, or Chris Alexander. We'd love to communicate with you during the week. But until then, next week we invite you to simply reflect on what has already happened. That the Spirit of the living God, made known to us most fully in Jesus Christ our Lord, has gone before you to show you the way, has gone above you to watch over you, has gone behind you to push you into places you may not necessarily have gone yourself, has gone beneath you to uphold you and uplift you, has gone beside you to be your strong companion, and has dwelt inside you to remind you that you are surely not alone, and you are loved beyond your wildest imagination. And because the not yet is already happening, the already is breaking forth into the world all the more. And that fire of God's blessing is going out, burning upon you and within you, and may it do so now and always. In Christ's name, amen.